Views and opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the staff or management of the Flavors of Northwest Arkansas podcast.
Well, hello there, and welcome to this week's edition of the Flavors of Northwest Arkansas podcast. I'm John Engelman. Thank you for being here. Selfishly, this is a special one for me. We're at San Miguel Mexican Grill and Bar in Fayetteville, talking with Jesus Rodriguez. Listen, I've been going to this place since they've been open, and you'll find out why. But first, the very eagerly anticipated opening of Zhao happened in Bentonville last Friday night. It's been a long time coming. You'll recall that I had a podcast with them on November the 13th when it was announced that they'd be opening a restaurant, which, by the way, you can still check out that episode. It's audio only, but it's there. Vincent Lim, a.k.a. Dim Sim Lim, the Australian celebrity chef, is the executive chef and part owner of the restaurant, with Barry Furuseth of Blue Fresh Fish Marketplace and celebrity pastry chef Catherine Zhang. I asked both Vincent and Barry what it feels like to have the last 7 months behind them.
Oh, finally, man. There's just been so much stress in the last 6 months. It's unbelievable, just from selecting the plates and bowls to picking out which dishes we want on the menu. And yeah, just all of that, I'm so glad that that's out of the way and we're ready for service.
Watch that. Big relief. Yeah. So it's just nice to be done with construction, and now we're just focusing really just on culinary and every dish that goes out of here.
The response from the community has been exactly what you'd think.
Response has been huge. So, our first 2 days we turned on the web just for people making reservations. We filled it up in a week. So, and I think by tomorrow, next week will be filled too. So, I think just the response, listen, we're super hip, high-end Chinese. One of the really cool things when you come in here is the handmade dim sums. We've got two ladies over here that for generations, when you hear their story, they were just telling me about a week ago that, when they get together in China at their grandma's place, they make dim sums together. And so these dim sums that they're making over here, when you come in, you see these handmade, they're amazing.
Also, this past weekend, the legendary Downtown Springdale Street Dinner. The executive chef for the event was none other than Be in the Know podcast co-host William Mock, who's also known as the chef and owner of Bienvenue, by the way. The dinner benefited Downtown Springdale. Now, what does that fund? Well, things like Live at Turnbow, art walks, Monarch flight festivals, family bike nights, Christmas on the Creek, and more. This was the 9th year of the dinner. Happy 13th birthday to Fossil Cove Brewing as they became teenagers over the weekend. They celebrated in part by reviving an original recipe called Water Street Wit, named after the brewery where they acquired their original brewing system. For those wondering what happened to the Punjabi Kitchen in Centerton Rogers and Springdale, you're not alone. What we do know is that the restaurants have closed, their phone is no longer in order, the website is down, there's no Facebook page. It just doesn't look good for folks looking for that northern Indian cuisine. We'll let you know if there are any updates. Hey, if you have a tip or have heard any food or beverage news, feel free to shoot me a note. Just look for Flavors of Northwest Arkansas on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. Or you can shoot me an email. It's at flavorsofnwa@gmail.com. That's flavorsofnwa@gmail.com. Jose Rodriguez emigrated from a small town outside of San Miguel in Mexico and made his way to Houston to get into the restaurant business. He started at the very bottom and made his way from absolutely nothing. He met the love of his life in Houston, and some 40-plus years later, their kids have kids. And though he doesn't know what the word retire means, his kids have taken over their 2 restaurants. La Hacienda, named after the restaurant in Houston where he learned the trade, and San Miguel, of course, the resort town near his hometown, and there might be something new on the horizon. One of Jose's sons is Jesus Rodriguez, who grew up in Fayetteville, one of 6 kids, and went to Brightwater, and now, for the most part, he runs San Miguel. We hear from Jesus about his family and how they ended up in Arkansas from Houston. He'll also tell us about growing up at La Hacienda and how he decided to go to Brightwater, and, of course, we talk food. And that's next, right here on the Flavors of Northwest Arkansas.
teachers are dynamic leaders, shaping a new generation. Innovating to prepare students for our fast-changing world. They're skilled experts, discovering a universe of solutions, telling stories, inspiring, mentoring, connecting cultures, leading by example. Teaching is a journey that shapes lives. Are you ready to begin? Explore teaching at teach.org.
Welcome back. We are at San Miguel in Fayetteville. We're with Jesus Rodriguez from the family, the Rodriguez family that owns San Miguel, Hacienda, and man, I appreciate your time. How are you?
No, good. Appreciate you, man. It's awesome. I've like we were talking about, I've always been listening, and
I appreciate it, man. That's kind of you.
It's awesome to be on here now. So,
well, I appreciate it. That's very kind of you. So you're the one. No, I'm kidding. I can't count the number of times that Mrs. Flavors of Northwest Arkansas and I have been here. It's been a lot. This is kind of our family place. It's a good midway point for our mother-in-law and my sister's family, which is in South Fayetteville. I'm up in Springdale. And this has kind of been our place. So real excited to be here and real excited to do this. And I also had a big birthday. I'm not going to mention the year, so you're not going to get it out of me. But I had a big birthday in the back room too, and it was a blast. So looking forward to this. So
yes, definitely.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. So I want to kind of start with the family. Obviously with you as well. And you were born in Houston, and that's where your parents immigrated to. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so even my mom, she's from Mexico City. Okay. And my dad, he's from Guanajuato. He's from, so San Miguel de Allende is the best way to understand.
Okay.
Because it's so rural. It's about 15, 20 minutes outside of San Miguel.
Okay.
It's basically past this town that's called Los Rodriguez.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I always take a picture every time that I go. I'm like, look at that. I was like, that looks awesome.
Do you guys get down there often?
Yeah. I mean, my parents, they built a house down there, so they go.
Very cool.
They go in every year. Like,
nice.
They'll spend. My grandmother passed away this past year, and they were spending. I think they were there for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they were there for quite a bit of time, but I mean, it's Mexico. And like being outside of San Miguel, it's great because you can get all the amenities that you have in the U.S.
Sure.
And everything's, for the most part, it's because it's such. I think it was like at one point, or it might still be the #1 touristic place in the world, I think, at one point.
Well, and my wife was in a wedding there a long time before I even met her, a long time ago. But yeah, she talks about it too, for sure.
It's an awesome city. So that's kind of where they're from, and then they basically met in Houston. And I mean, yeah, my dad, he left his rancho, his little ranch.
Okay.
I want to say in the 76, 78.
Okay.
And then him and my mom met up, and they basically, in Houston is where, it all started for us.
Sure.
It's something that, I don't really remember too much, but I take a lot of pride in being from Houston. And
dude, you were 2, right?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Who remembers 2? Come on.
Yeah. But the thing is, growing up, we'd go back every summer. So there's a lot of that Texas influence that, that really stuck with us. And
sure.
Even like people in Northwest Arkansas would be like, man, where are you guys getting this from? Or
right.
like, just even the, like what we'd wear, like stuff like that. Cause we'd go to the malls in Houston. And,
oh yeah.
Here it was a smaller town, and
back then, yeah.
Yeah. You didn't have as much options.
For sure. Mm-hmm. So your parents get married. What was the dream for them?
So my dad, his dream always was, he always worked in restaurants for the most part. And my mother, she worked at Whataburger whenever, in Houston. And their thing was like, hey, we want to eventually, open a restaurant.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the goal. And I mean, I feel like just being an immigrant, I think at the time, and just seeing that it was an entry point to be able to, generate wealth or generate, some kind of cash flow, as in like, hey, I can take a tortilla and some meat and sell it, and You know,
Absolutely.
it's like, for a lot of people, it's like, it's not as a simple process. They're like, well, you know,
Sure.
I'd rather just give someone some money and like, hey, take care of it.
That's right. Absolutely right. Especially in places like Houston.
Yeah, definitely.
And or Dallas or wherever in Texas, especially.
Mm-hmm.
So your dad came here and couldn't read or write English.
Yeah.
Which is a huge hurdle for someone working to where he wanted to get within the restaurant business down in Houston.
Yeah, well, so in Houston, when he was, you know, working as a waiter, he basically had to learn to do math, how to do the taxes. But he's like, well, you know, there's different ways that I went about learning. And he's like, and he talks about how he had his notebook.
Yeah.
And on his notebook on the back, he would do the conversions. He'd have like it already written out.
Brilliant.
So he's like, so if a bill was, he's like, I'd have it down to like every dollar. So he's like, $1 was X amount, $2 was X amount. And he's like, I had it in 5s, 10s. He's like, and that was all written kind of on the back.
Perfect.
So it was like a cheat sheet for him, kind of.
It's great.
Yeah, he's like, you know, he's like, that's when waiters were waiters. He's like,
I get it, man.
he talks about it. He's like, you know, I've gone back to Houston and talked to a lot of his friends now that own restaurants and stuff like that. Or they're still in the business, you know, they're still waitering or, you know, being a server, stuff like that. And, you know, these guys can throw it down even though they're close to 60 and, you know, some are 68. And I'm like, man. And they grab, like, I mean, there's just this way that waiters work in Tex-Mex restaurants in Texas. It's like they have a...
For sure.
Like, for the most part, you know, service is definitely a big thing, but they can work for the most part, those guys. I'd see them in La Hacienda running in Houston with 2 trays.
Yeah, man.
Up and down stairs, and I'm like, I could never do that.
There's no way. And they'd probably have like a 7 or 8 table section. Yeah. Just busting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they talk about that time in Houston in the 80s, how, you know, say like the rodeo would be in town.
Oh, my gosh.
And they're like, I know that I'm going to be so tired, but I'm going to be walking out with fat pockets.
I'm telling you, for those that don't know, the Houston Rodeo is I'd say it's the biggest thing in Houston.
Yeah, it definitely is. And they would have, they would take like the animals, the cows and like the cowboys, and they'd just ride the horses right in front of the restaurant supposedly back in the day.
Heck yeah.
And there's this older lady we talked to about a year or two ago, and she's like, yeah. She's like, Jose, talking to my dad, she's like, you remember whenever they would order just pitchers and pitchers of margarita? And she's like, and then they would go out and ride their horses and just get back to the rodeo. And I'm just like, man, I was like, I bet that was a time.
That sounds like the 80s and the 70s for that matter. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I love the story about how your dad went from a bartender to a waiter.
Yeah, so it's a good one. I mean,
It's a great one.
for the most part, when he arrived to La Hacienda, you know, he just kind of one of those, I just want to work, you know, it didn't matter. So he was willing to work, you know, he did a dish pit, did everything, you know. And finally he got to the point where he's like, you know, I'm a pretty good bartender, and they let him stick there. And he had, like, it was his bar I got to visit it last year, and he showed me, and it's just a small space, and it's got like 2 margarita machines. And for some reason, they don't serve, like, draft beer.
Huh.
I noticed in a lot of places that we would go to, it was all bottled beer. So it was just a cooler for bottled beer.
Oh, wow.
But he would tell us, he's like, yeah, you know, I was the bartender. I was the guy, you know, making the drinks. He's like, it was a ton of work because back in the day, he's like, you know, we'd do a lot more older drinks, like, you know, old fashions,
Sure.
you know, Manhattan, stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, so there's a point where basically the general manager and everyone decided that they're going to switch to aprons for the servers and waiters
Instead of coats.
Yeah, because they would all wear coats.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's a certain type of coat they would wear. I honestly never got to witness the coats.
Sure.
I only grew up seeing aprons. And this guy, you know, big machismo guy, is like, no. He's like, that's for women. He's like,
So funny.
He's like, I don't wear that. And so the guy walked out and quit. He's like, I'm not gonna do that. He's like, the whole apron thing is not for me. And so my dad, you know, just happened to witness what went down, and he's like, the guy, the manager at the time,
Sure.
turned around and he's like, hey, Mijo, you think you could be the waiter? He's like, you want to be a waiter? He's like, well, now's your chance. He's like, here you go. He put it on him, and that's when he started as a waiter.
Heck yeah.
I mean,
What a great story.
and for the most part, my mom even talks about it, how my dad was really never, he was a quiet person.
Sure.
But he understood the business, that he's like, talking sells. And so he had to get into it to,
Break out of the shell.
yeah, and he really did. And to this day, my mom's like, man, she's like, your dad can make friends anywhere or talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. I was like, and that's another reason he's just got a good vibe with Fayetteville and the people of Fayetteville. And a lot of people know my dad.
Oh, yeah. He's never met a stranger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because a lot of people don't know, they'll be like, who is he? Or, is he the owner a lot of the times? And
Yeah.
my dad, he'll throw them off and sometimes say, he's like, I'm the maintenance man. He's like, I'm just here to help.
That's it.
Yeah. And I mean,
I heard that already from someone else today. Yeah.
yeah, he likes to hit that a lot. And
Yeah.
he, for the most part, when he became a waiter, he had already worked a little bit of everything. So, it really helped out for whenever they got their chance. And
It's great.
Stepping into opening the business and, doing the whole restaurant and everything.
And let's talk about that. How and why Arkansas from Houston?
So I think in the time, Houston was already, it was still a good area, but I think he was already starting to see that it was starting to become a little bit more dangerous than,
Sure.
what they thought. And they're like, well, they had my aunt, my mother's sister, she had been coming up here to Arkansas in this area. I believe Tawnytown is where she was going to, and they were picking berries. And, at that time, they're like, hey, it was a seasonal thing. And they're like, it's pretty good money. They're like, I think you should, just check out the place if you guys want to see, maybe it could be somewhere you guys can raise a family. And my parents like, all right, let's take a trip. And they told me they came and checked it out. Just, popped in and out, basically. And
Yeah.
they're like, hey, this is good.
Yeah.
Like, this is good enough.
Perfect.
And, whenever they made that trip, it was, 6 siblings. And, I think he said at the time he had maybe $900 or $1,000 in his pocket.
Whew.
And, they decided, let's relocate to Northwest Arkansas. We lived in Fayetteville. There used to be a trailer park behind the Brahms there, where
College?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Sunbridge?
Yeah, Sunbridge.
Yeah.
So we always lived kind of in that area.
Okay.
And eventually we got a trailer.
Nice.
And that's where
you
we
start, right?
Yeah, that's where we we started off. And it was at the time, it was for us beautiful. It was something that you didn't know you were poor. You didn't.
No.
It was just you're just a kid, and
Yeah.
you're growing up, and
And you get to live by a place where you can get ice cream, dude.
yeah. That was a thing for me.
Yeah.
I had an older brother that worked there.
There you go.
And he'd show up with ice cream sometimes, and
Perfect,
me
man.
and my twin, we'd be like, "Man, this is awesome."
It's great memories, man.
Yeah,
right?
definitely. And I mean, now whenever I drive by there, I'm just like, man, it was a good time.
Yeah.
And I mean, it helps mold who you are for the most part, I think.
Absolutely.
It
Absolutely.
definitely does.
So you guys get up here. What were your folks' first job? Because they've got to hit the ground running pretty much, right?
Yeah. So I think first they tried to go to like Campbell's Soup right
Okay.
here, South Fayetteville.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually they ended up in Superior Wheels, where they were making wheels at this manufacturing plant.
Okay.
And I mean, it's this type of job where, I would see them leave at probably like 6 a.m.
Oh, gosh.
and I wouldn't see them till probably about 5 p.m., 6 p.m., just on their way back. And, they'd leave completely, with their work clothes completely clean. And when they'd come back, they'd be completely black from the
Wow.
chroming of the wheels and everything.
Holy-
So they would wear safety glasses, and it would be black just all around. And I mean, I was just like, man. And my mother, she worked there with my dad. And for the most part, they always said hey, I had uncles that went and tried it out, and they quit after the first week or two. And my grandpa at the time, when he was staying over here,
Yeah.
he told my mother, he's like, hey, you're so strong, daughter, just because he's like, you're outworking these men. And her her section or where she was in charge of, it was pretty hard work for what was considered like for a woman at the time.
Yeah.
But my dad, he was also in the plant, and they worked there until about, I want to say 6 years.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, a little bit. It was a little bit more probably.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean they from there, they always had that idea and that plan like, hey, I'm gonna open a restaurant. And my dad, even from the time we left Houston to here, he was buying things here and there, like,
For a restaurant.
yeah, like cups, plates.
No kidding.
Yeah, just small stuff here
Just
and there.
scheming the whole way.
Yeah, and my mom was like, she's like, you're like a hoarder. Like she thought she was like he was hoarding or something. Like like
What are you doing, dude?
Yeah, what do you keep collecting all this stuff for? And
Yeah.
it's like, I'm gonna open a restaurant eventually. And
Nice.
that was something that they say like, oh, the tongue is very powerful, and it is. It's like, he spoke it into an existence, and we got lucky here in Fayetteville. My dad, he has this thing for, even currently, like, well, I do it too, and my brother. We'll drive around areas and just scout them out, just like, hey, I think a restaurant would work here, or hey,
I think a lot of people do that too.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll do that, and they happen to be doing that. And at the time, my dad, the location he wanted was in Sunset in Springdale, and it's across from what used to be called, I think, Pattaya. I can't remember what it is now, but it was at that time. It was like,
It's over there like by Pleasant, maybe? Am I thinking right? Am I thinking further east?
it'll be on the right of Pleasant, next to that old gas station that they
Yeah.
closed down.
Yeah.
So that building next to it,
Okay.
my dad had seen it for lease, I think, like in '99 or something.
Okay.
He was like, man, he's like, that'd be a good spot.
Yeah.
And it just never worked out for him there.
Good.
And he kept looking. Finally, he happened to be on this side of town. We were more South Fayetteville.
Okay.
So, coming up to this uptown area, he ran into, just happened to turn right there into Zion, followed it till it was the end. Because, I mean, at the time, Zion used to be just a 2-lane road, and it was super windy,
Sure. Yeah.
There was nothing around on the right or left until you got to the end of it where, FAC
Yeah.
and that little shopping center right there.
That's it.
And, it's at the time it was called, I think, Keys Corner, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And, I think at that time, before us, there was another tenant.
Okay.
And it was called El Toro, is what
Okay.
I remember.
Okay.
And that place, I don't know what happened. I was too young to know at the time.
Sure.
But I still remember walking through it when my dad was getting showed the location. And at that time, it wasn't as big. We've expanded it over time. And I was just a little kid, me and my brother, my little sister also. And we were just walking around, and we're like, what is this?
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about restaurants at the time. I didn't realize what my parents had worked in.
Right. They'd been working at the wheel factory. The whole time.
That's all I knew at the
Yeah,
time. I was
yeah.
like, oh, yeah. It was like, they were helping making wheels.
Here you go. Right.
And, so it was neat just walking in, turning on the lights, coming in through the back door, and just, seeing this kitchen equipment, seeing all this stuff set up.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. We're walking through it. We see like booths and tables. And, at the time, the guy that was showing him, he's a really good friend of ours. He helped my dad with everything that I can imagine, from, everything with setting up, your business accounts, and setting up, just going to the city and, getting your permits and everything.
That's a hard thing if you don't have that help. It's impossible. If you
he did, like, at the time, just a little background on my dad. He's someone that never learned to read. He never learned to write. He didn't go to one day of school. If I'm not mistaken, when he was born, he was never ever like registered in Mexico that he was born or anything like that.
Wow.
So
Your dad's a ghost.
yeah, it was such a rural area. I mean, even to this day, it's so rural. Like, I've taken my in-laws there because
Wow.
there's this thing like, they're like, hey, I come from a very rural area. It's like almost like cowboys talking about like,
Sure.
like, hey, my ranch is better than your ranch.
Okay.
type
Gotcha.
of deal.
You bet.
But my dad, whenever I tell them, I'm like, no, I'm like, look, where we're from is very rural. I was like, there's nothing around. My in-laws are like, hey, I'm going to go visit. And we happened to show up in Mexico and we met. I took him to where my dad's from, and he walked out of the car and he's like, well, Jesus, I think you're right. He's like, this is pretty lonely.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can't even get cell
Welcome.
service. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah. I was like, there's nothing really here. But I mean, it's starting to develop a little bit more, but it's awesome because it's 15, 20 minutes from San Miguel.
Sure.
So that's what makes it cool.
Sure.
And I mean, like my father, he didn't have any education on, how to do any of this.
Mm-hmm.
So he learned, my mom says, she's like, I learned from hard work. She's like, that's what my school is, and that's what my dad's school is too.
Yeah, man.
So for the most part, when we got to this point, Bill Kennedy came into our life, and he happened to own that corner plaza at the time. And I mean, he was another guy that came in kind of like a father figure to even me and my siblings, helping us with tutoring even.
Wow.
Just because, I mean, my parents were like, I don't understand this,
Sure.
this algebra or, this
of
stuff that
course.
you're showing us.
Yeah.
And it's like, at that time, Bill came, helped us out, and, helped us set up in the restaurant.
It's great.
And
So great.
At that time, when we first opened, I have, a couple sisters that are older than me. Two of them were basically front of house.
Okay.
My dad was also front of house, which is something that, he just, the day we opened, he became this front of house just expert with,
Freaking maitre d', man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And back of house was my mom, and we had another cook. And, when we opened, there's probably like a 2-week period, or it might have been a little bit longer, where they had like just a crash course of like, they had 2 friends come from Houston of my dad's.
Okay.
That he worked with, and they helped open, like basically help my mom learn how to cook the menu,
Okay.
and then help my dad with setting up just the front of house type of deal. And basically, like, my mom tells me to this day, I consider like her like one of my chefs because, she taught me everything I know. And, my mom's like, I still remember crying because I didn't know how to do the combination dinner right, or,
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know that this is supposed to be guacamole on this enchilada dinner, or,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be yellow cheese instead of white cheese. And she's like, it was hard. She's like, there's a couple nights where I was crying because, I had to learn it.
Gosh.
And I mean, for the most part, when we open, like every other restaurant, has its good rush.
Yeah.
And there was one point where my dad's like, business is okay. It wasn't bad. But there was a customer who happened to put in the newspaper that we had opened, and it was kind of like a grand opening type of deal. My dad's like, he told me that, and I remember when I turned the sign on and I was opening the doors to the front door, he's like, I saw cars just parking. He's like, and I saw a bunch of people just walking. And he's like, they're coming. And he's like, in his head, he's like, I gotta get ready.
Wow.
And yeah, so we got our butts kicked. At the time I was probably, I was 8.
Okay.
So, I wasn't really too much a part of it that much, but then probably like 9 or 10 is whenever I kind of stepped more into being an actual help. For the most part, like me and my siblings, we didn't have a babysitter. I mean, the whole family was working in the restaurant.
Yeah.
So the restaurant was our babysitter.
That's great.
We would, me and my brother, we still talk about it, and even my little sister, how there were times that we would have to fall asleep in the back where the storage room was, and we'd fall asleep on the sacks of, beans.
Right, yeah.
The pinto beans right there. And
Yeah.
fall asleep on like 5 sacks of beans right there.
That's great, man.
And, that's where we grew up for the most part, being basically restaurant kids. We hung out there. We would, eat there. That was our summer camp.
Yeah.
And, like even growing up, sports kind of helped us get away from it,
Sure.
Me and my brother, we were, played football. So that kind of, we're like, hey, it's getting us out of work at least.
There you go.
It's
Yeah.
like, I might have to run a couple gashers, but I was like, at least I'm not having to be at work.
Right.
And I think that's just something, you grow up and you're like, I hate having to do this. I hate having to, work in the family business per se.
It's a good thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize it was like a blessing in disguise.
100%.
I'm like, now I'm like, I'm so, blessed that I was able to have to work at such a young age. And, now that I'm older, it's like, it's a easier transition to what I've seen some of the other people I grew up with, where they're like, oh man, I have to go to work. And it's like, man, I don't know what to tell you, man.
Hang in there, Haas.
Yeah, it's part of life, man. I was like,
right.
I don't think we're close to retirement age, so I was like, I still got quite a ways to go.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's awesome. So was there ever any doubt that it would not be called La Hacienda?
No, definitely. So my dad, he worked at the La Hacienda in Houston that's where he learned everything.
Right.
I believe that one in Houston, the one he worked, was opened in like 1965.
Okay.
And he always said, like, whenever I open my restaurant, he's like, I'm going to name it La Hacienda. And, it might have been just like a kind of an honor to like, that's where he learned it. And, that's where he,
kind of a tip of the cap.
Yeah, where he sharpened his knife kind of.
Yep, there you go.
And, that place, you go there and you go to the La Hacienda in Fayetteville here on Zion, and it's the same menu. Like,
okay.
Like whenever I showed up a year ago and I ordered the quail, same charro beans, same rice. They just had their tortillas in a different tortilla holder. But,
okay.
I mean, it was all completely the same.
Same thing.
And I'm just like, man, and I mean, when my dad opened it, he's like, yeah. He's like, some people probably were like, oh, there's a lot of people that confuse us for the La Hacienda in Hot Springs or Little Rock, I think.
Okay.
And I'm like, no. I was like,
it's a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go and say we're the original. I'm like,
well, part of it at least, right?
Yeah. At least part of it. We got the like I said, my dad got the blessing from the original owner.
Perfect.
And so when he told me it was okay, my dad's like, that's what I'm gonna name it, and that's what we decided. And I mean, that point forward, it was La Hacienda, and that was the only thing that was our baby, even like per se from my parents.
Sure.
And even us as we've gotten older, we're like, hey, we have to take care of what's given us everything that we have.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that came to, we had one in South Fayetteville also out across from Baum Stadium, and that was a good time. I mean, it's definitely a different type of clientele base there.
Oh yeah. And
I mean, we're like, I think we like the north side of town more.
It's different, yeah.
Yeah, south, there's a lot of students.
Craziness.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, craziness.
At that time,
and that was the upstairs one, right?
Yeah. At that time, we were able to see the games.
At that time, yeah.
And I mean, it was crazy. Like at the time, I was probably 18 to about like 23.
Okay, yeah.
And it was, I mean, like you said, just mayhem, crazy. Like during the season, don't get me wrong, like January, February, it was still pretty slow, but
yeah.
Baseball season, football season coming around, it was just wild. I remember there was one time, there's a shout out to Maldy from Cafe New Orleans.
She's the greatest.
She literally stopped eating and helped us and was bussing tables.
No kidding.
Yeah, so that I'll always remember that, and it's like it just sticks in my mind.
That's her.
And we were just like, I was so shocked because I was like, man, I couldn't believe the amount of people that were just lined up that stairway.
Yeah.
And we had someone approach us and they're like, hey, we want to get in the restaurant business. And so we're like, well, we got a spot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
That's whenever we kind of downsized a little bit.
Yeah.
And we just concentrated basically on La Hacienda again in Zion. And
well, then 2014 comes around.
Yes, sir. It was so my dad's, his mentality kind of, it evolves and it grows, and he took it from like being a restaurant owner to he's like, I want to own the dirt where my restaurant is. He's like, so Mr. Kaiser at the time, who owned the building, he I think he had approached my dad, or a real estate agent approached my dad, and he's like, hey, he's like, I got a spot you should look at. And I'd driven by here growing up, never ever did it cross my mind. I'm like, oh, that's gonna be, that's gonna
be a Halloween store.
Yeah, exactly. I remember one time I had come here, and it was, at the time, there was just a bunch of like makeshift walls everywhere.
Okay, yeah.
And I think the bar was blocked off.
It was to hang.
Yeah, all the masks. And
yeah,
all
exactly.
The
That's what I remember. That now you say that. Yeah.
And I did come in, and I remember I bought one time a mask. And at that time, I was driving our catering vehicle. It's like a Ford Transit.
Okay.
And I was in such a rush because I was like, my girlfriend, we're going to go to this Halloween party. I got to get this, I got to get this mask. And then I had to go back to work and make sure they didn't, that I took the catering car.
Right.
Well, I ended up losing the key during the process.
No.
Right here in the front lawn.
No.
So I was stuck here for like an hour and a half, like walking through the Halloween store at the time.
No.
And during when Halloween's coming up, it's a busy store. So
Yeah.
I was like looking around and like getting in people's ways and just ducking down, trying to look everywhere.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I ended up finding the key, and I was like, man, I remember I was like, I hate this place. It's like, I don't know why I came here. I told my girlfriend, I was like, I don't even know why I got the mask. I was like, I should just wore something else.
Right.
But yeah, that's how it turned out. And
Ends up being fortuitous.
yeah, I mean, then 2014 came around, and they approached my dad, and my dad was a little hesitant until one guy told him, he's like, hey, if you got the cojones, you'll do it.
Oh, no.
And yeah, so my dad, he's like, well, you know what, let's go through with it.
Okay.
And his next thing was like, I'm gonna name it San Miguel, because he wanted it to be, kind of a representation more of where we're from, San Miguel, and kind of what it, its style is. Not so much the cooking, it's more Tex-Mex, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's definitely still very, there is Mexican dishes, but for the most part, enchiladas, fajitas, burritos, stuff like that.
Sure.
And, my dad, he's like, we're going to name it San Miguel. And he's like, we're going to do a lot of the work ourselves.
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of the flooring and stuff, we had me and my brother and my dad, we scraped.
Oh.
And, we found out, like, we tried, like, probably 4 or 5 different methods. And then finally, a painter came up to us that painted the building at the time. He's like, hey, just get some paint thinner and spread it on there. And he's like, and get these scrapers and run it on there. And so we literally scraped the whole restaurant with like 5-inch scrapers or something like that.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I mean...
Oh, you were so sore.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't remember how many days that we were...
Just be thankful you weren't in your 40s or 50s while your dad was probably sore.
Yeah. I mean, my dad, he'll outwork a lot of people my age.
Yeah, he will.
Yeah, he's just someone that he likes work.
Yeah.
He every day he'll start his day at like 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And he's like, let's get to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, even then, it's hard to stop him. He won't, like, even right now, he's doing his lawn.
It's crazy. Yeah, he's mowing the lawn outside. That's a heck of a retirement. Heck of a retirement.
Right, yeah.
So tell me about getting this place open. I mean, you get the floors done, you get all of the cosmetic stuff together.
Yeah, so, we got basically everything in place. Painters got everything ready. They even did the tables for us. They repainted them and stained them.
Nice.
So basically we had like kind of almost a ghost kind of staff. Like we had borrowed some people from La Hacienda per se.
Okay, yeah.
And we had them work like the first couple weeks, and they helped us out until we really set our staff in place, and then they took over after that.
Nice.
And I mean, for the most part, La Hacienda opened in 2000, so there's some people that stuck around, even to this day, they're still there. In 2014, awesome. They helped us out, and they helped establish and, set the standard for the most part. And, it was a pretty smooth transition, I think.
Yeah.
It was definitely something that size is definitely a big difference between here and La Hacienda.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, even then, the buildings changed throughout time. I mean, where right here used to be just a room and a wall running like right across here.
Okay, yeah.
And it was just a kind of private room. And I mean, one day my dad's like, hey, let's grab a hammer and let's see.
Let's grab a hammer.
He's like, let's see behind the sheetrock and see. And
were you guys not like? Was this not a part of it? Like you couldn't see back here, or
you could, but it was just a doorway right here.
Oh, I
and
see.
A doorway over there.
I got you. All right.
And
So he was pot committed at that point. He's like, let's just do it.
Yeah. Even La Hacienda, there's a wall there, and inside that, overnight, he's like, hey, let's knock this down.
That's great.
Yeah, I was probably like 11 at the time. 12.
Did you go up to him and say, I don't think you have the cojones to knock down that wall?
Oh, no. I walked in the next day and I was like, what happened? He's like, I knocked the wall down.
Get a broom.
Yeah, pretty much. I was like, okay. And I mean, it's something that he doesn't think about it much.
Yeah.
When he's got something on his mind,
it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's always been that type of person. He's always got the wheels turning for the most part. It's
That's
like,
great.
You know, even like now, like, you know, in Mexico, he'll be scouting spots, or even here in Northwest Arkansas.
Craziness.
Hey, what do you think about this area for this?
That's great. That's great. Well, and you guys get this place open.
Yeah.
And get it rolling. And you got 2 really, really good restaurants going. And then here comes COVID.
Yeah. It was something that just, for everyone, I think, you know, not just the hospitality or restaurant business. Mm-hmm. Everyone in general had changed their life. And even to this day, I think you're still feeling waves of how it changed the industry, and, you know, especially in the...
Changed people.
Yeah, definitely. Like, even in the restaurant and hospitality industry, you know, like, back in the day, before COVID, you know, like our schedule for the restaurant, we would close at 11 Friday and Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, during the week was at 10 o'clock. After COVID, you know, we realized that it changed, that there's not as much of a crowd as there used to be at 11. And we're like, you know, we can save money just cutting back that hour and honestly giving it back to let your employees rest a little bit more.
Sure.
Because, you know, some people really got fed up with the industry. Are like, I'm not going to work there anymore. And the restaurants.
Tough. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't blame them, but, you know, I think it was a good change for the most part with some people.
Well, and especially during that time, we didn't know what was next after COVID. We didn't know how long it was going to be. We didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I was working at Preacher's Son, and it was a fun time. Shout out to Matt Cooper. And
there he is.
I ended up coming back with my parents, but before that, my plan was, like, after coming out of culinary school, I wanted to go to Houston, and I wanted to work there. I was like, I'm gonna go work for Chef Hugo.
Oh wow,
Ortega. That was my plan. I drove with my brother to Houston. You know, literally took the interview, talked to the girl.
Really?
At the time she was the sous chef, and she's like, well, what she recommended to me, she didn't want to just give me the job.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, well, I think you should move here. And she's like, you know, make sure that shit doesn't hit the fan and, you know, you're not able to work here or something.
Yeah.
And then literally COVID happened. And so.
Oh, gosh, right then and there.
Yeah. And so at that time, I was like, you know, I wasn't working for Matt Cooper either. At that time, you know, they had let some people go from Preacher's Son. And what wasn't going to happen in Houston, I was like, I'm just going to have to, you know, I'm going to have to come back and really concentrate on the family business.
Yeah.
Because my parents, you know, they're at an age, they love the business. My dad, you can't keep him out of the restaurant.
Sure.
But, we didn't know what it was. We didn't know what was happening. So me and my siblings were like.
Batten down the hatches, man.
Yeah, we're like, we'll be the ones who'll be the face, you know. And it's so crazy because I remember me and my brother, Alex, we decided on Cinco de Mayo, you know, it was just at that time, I think it was to-goes only.
Okay.
And right there, we only opened La Hacienda. We didn't open San Miguel. Well, no, we did open San Miguel. We had, I had 2 waiters and my manager at the time. They were running to-go orders. And I was helping my brother over there. And I was like, you know, it's Cinco de Mayo, and I was like, I don't think too many people are gonna want, to-go food. So I was like, let's just bring a cook. I was like, me, you, and the cook, and I was like, we'll be able to handle it. Biggest mistake that we ever did. Like, literally.
I've been in a Cinco de Mayo here. I know it's, yeah.
Yeah, like, I don't know what I was thinking. And it's just that
You got
uncertainty.
crushed.
Yeah, that uncertainty. You're like, I don't think we'll have too much, I was like, it'll be all right.
Yeah.
So, if you know where La Hacienda is, that parking lot literally became a 2-row drive-through from the gas station to the restaurant with cars lined up. The people in Fayetteville were so great at the time because they supported us, and they did, like, not even just us for the restaurant in general. I mean, even for the waiters, like, my waiters were making, good money, and it's just because at the time, like, that's all they were making their money from.
That's all you can do.
There was no PPP at the time or anything like that, and it's like, so it's awesome that the way that people responded and just really helped out, the community, helped us out and helped out my employees with, just giving them good tips, and even like people wanted to work,
Sure.
My workers are like, hey, I want to work, so it's like there's a lot of places that they could choose to go to or, could have easily gone to, and we're blessed that they came and chose us.
Yeah.
That's what we really, we're really grateful for, and that's why I love Fayetteville also.
Yeah. So most recently, and I know you said you can't keep your dad out of the restaurant, but you and your siblings have started kind of taking over the restaurants. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean,
To a degree, do we need to tap dance and be careful how we phrase that without?
No, nothing like that.
All right,
it's
good.
Like, so my brother, he mostly handles La Hacienda.
Yeah.
He's always there, and then I kind of handle San Miguel for the most part. And I mean, that's just something that, being in a family business, you can tell when things aren't right, or when hey, they didn't turn the sign on, or hey,
Right.
and you just pick that up from, I think, especially us, our parents, the way they just taught us and raised us, and
Sure.
they instilled basically the business into us.
Right.
And it's just something that we can enjoy. And at the time, when we were young, it was something that you kind of don't like and you kind of hate. You're like, I don't want to do that. But now, we're like, it's a good time because our customers are our friends too,
Yeah.
and we get along with a lot of them. And
A very high percentage of the people that walk in this building.
yes, definitely. I mean, it's just very like, they know us, we know them, they know our family.
Yeah.
I grew up here. There's a lot of people that, I know from Fayetteville.
Sure.
And, so it's something that my brother, he mostly handles. It's not just like, oh, we look at the numbers, or, oh, we go and just, just observe or watch or manage. If we have to pick up a broom and sweep, or
Of course.
if we have to go and take an order, or, go and bust a table, we're in there to do that. Same thing with the kitchen aspect, where my mom taught us, how to dice, how to, cut an onion, how to cut tomatoes.
Sure.
How to make our sauces, or, like simple things like, hey, you're supposed to cut the fajita meat, on the beef against the grain instead of with the grain.
Yeah, man.
And I mean, that's something I learned, very young. And, now that we're older, we're like, it feels like nothing for the most part. And like my dad says, he's like, it's not my job. He's like, it's just what I do, and I enjoy it.
It's not my job, it's my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's definitely our life. And I mean, I have another sister, Paloma. She helps out with a lot of the marketing aspect of things, and she has another job, but anytime we need help or anything like that, she will show up.
Sure.
And then we have another sister, Anna. She's a little bit older, but we have a store in Weddington that's a taqueria.
Oh, really?
And like a Latin store. And so she runs that operation there. And
I did not know that.
Yeah, and that's more your traditional, like actual, like, tacos de lengua,
Okay.
tacos de tripa, tortas, sopes.
Yeah, man.
That's more your actual authentic, I guess you could say.
Sure.
And that's something that she runs over there, and we kind of just all, we'll help each other out for the most part. Anytime we'll send a message in the group message like, hey, X and X is going on vacation, go help them out this couple days.
That's awesome.
And I mean, that's something that, my parents are still very much a part of the business, and, they, just because of the type of people they are.
Right.
And
I don't think they know any other way.
No, they don't. And I mean, they, like, even my brother, like, we'll keep an eye on all the businesses together, and sometimes we'll drive around and be like, hey, let's go check out, La Hacienda or San Miguel.
Yeah.
Even on our days off, we'll be like, hey, let's go see how they're doing.
Addicted. Just addicted.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just, I guess that's just how we grew up, and it's just, it seems normal to us. Maybe to a lot of people, they're like, no.
Yeah.
You need to go rest. But,
True. You do need that. You ready to talk food?
Definitely.
We'll talk food. We got the Mike Engelman Home Pro Tip of the Week, and that's coming up next, right here on the Flavors of Northwest Arkansas.
Let me show you something.
Connect with us at Flavors of Northwest Arkansas on Facebook and Instagram, or by email at flavorsofnwa@gmail.com.
All right, it is that time, the Mike Engelman Home Pro Tip of the Week, and for that, we're going to Jesus. What is your tip, good sir?
So one thing my mom always kind of taught us growing up, and I mean, it's in general, it's used like in a lot in Mexican households, is just your good old pig lard, or we like to call manteca, and just, even tallow right now with how popular it's becoming.
Beef tallow, yeah.
Yeah, you can just get a little scoop of that, and that's always the perfect thing for, like, say, like refried beans. Some people use oil, but, there's just a certain flavor it releases. And apart from that, like, a lot of the times what we'll do is we'll get, like, the bay leaves or the spices or, whatever you're using, toast it a little bit in the lard while it's, melting.
Okay.
And it kind of helps release those flavors and those essence and everything into the lard. So whatever, you fry or you cook, it has those flavors captured into that. And it definitely gives it a good flavor. Like, you can throw a dried chile or, a bay leaf and an onion, and just kind of fry it up a little. Then you pour, your beans into that and mash them, and it just makes it a perfect one.
Interesting. Good one.
Yeah, and I mean, you can use that even for just whatever. I mean, I've had people who use it, like, just to start off like in Mexican rice, we fry it. And, we'll use that sometimes just to fry it beforehand.
Interesting.
Yeah, and once it reaches this golden color, we'll, pour the tomato ingredients, and that's what makes our, like, red rice kind of.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great tip. We'll be right back.
Sir.
Your story doesn't have to end. As an organ donor, the good in you can live on. In fact, you can save up to 8 lives through organ donation. Sign up to give the gift of life after you're gone. You'll be happy you did. Just maybe, someone else will too. Sign up online today as an organ, eye, and tissue donor at organdonor.gov. It saves lives.
Without organ donation, my life would not be good right now. In fact, it would probably be hell. I'd be in a not-so-great stage of dialysis right now, and certainly not doing this podcast. I got exceptionally lucky with a healthy kidney from a deceased donor. I've heard the question before, can I donate for my friend? What if we're not a match? Here's your answer. You can be a paired exchange, and let me explain what that is. A paired exchange involves 2 pairs of living donors and the recipients. And the 2 recipients swap donors so that each receives a kidney from the other person's donor that actually matches. If that's an option for you, your transplant team will coordinate it, the whole process, including finding the other matching pair. Do not give up on the process if you're not a match. You can learn more at kidney.org, and it's always become a registered donor at organdonor.gov. Thank you so much, as always. And welcome back. We're with Jesus Rodriguez, and we are here at San Miguel. We are talking food. Now, at this point, people that listen and watch, they're used to me saying, how would you describe your food? I'm going to describe your food.
Awesome.
It reminds me, being born and raised in Dallas, it reminds me of the restaurant I grew up going to with my family called El Phoenix. And I don't know if you're familiar with El Phoenix, but it was the popular one in Dallas. They had, at that time, probably 3 or 4 in Dallas proper. Mm-hmm. And it all started from a family at their downtown location, the Martinez family. And we would go there for enchilada special dinner. And it was a place till my dad died he loved going to. Now, it went to crap when it sold. The family sold out, someone else bought it, and the quality just did not. Someone from there is probably going to be listening. I don't care for the quality there anymore. I'll just put it like that. And I'm pretty sure it's corporate now. Yeah. It's not a mom and pop thing down there. But anyway, so it was the authentic Tex-Mex. It was the good enchiladas. It was the good tacos. Yeah. It was the good burritos. It was the sopapillas at the end of the night that we would take and have for breakfast the next morning. We would always take home sopapillas all the time. That's what San Miguel, and I've not been to La Hacienda in a long time because I always come here instead.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just saying, you just get used to something and you go where you go.
Yeah.
I had been there a couple, 2-3 years ago. Someone wanted to go there. I was like, yeah, it's great. But anyway, that's what this place reminds me of. And that, I think, was the initial pull for me coming here, especially once I got married and my wife, who I met here but is from 15 minutes from where I'm from in Dallas, that was what kind of pulled us in, I think. Tell me your thoughts.
Growing up, I was always like, oh, we're a Mexican restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And, this was me just not knowing about, the regionality of, how cuisines work and how they are. And as I grew older, I started to learn. I was like, oh, this is actually Tex-Mex. I was like, this isn't really Mexican. And
you're in Arkansas, man. You can't say your food's got any sort of Texas anything, right?
Right, yeah. Seriously, they'll call it Arc-Mex.
There you go. Atta baby.
And, the cool thing is that if you're from Texas or if you've lived in some period in time in Texas and you come to either La Hacienda or San Miguel, you'll instantly know that's kind of where our roots are from.
Absolutely.
Because of a lot of it, I base it off is the enchilada sauce, the gravy, that there's a lot of people who they're like, hey, that's just like how they make it in Texas.
Right.
I'm like, no, yeah. I was like, you're on the money.
You're onto something here, guy.
Yeah. And, just the American cheese, being a big part of it. And, that crispy iceberg lettuce and, the red, crispy tomatoes that they dice up. And, it just all of that really, it ties in to being, very Tex-Mex. And even then, you can get into a whole nother discussion of like California's got their own kind of Mexican
Of course.
food.
Oh, absolutely.
And you get into Texas, that becomes a whole nother, because you have, the real, Valley, how they do it. Then you have Central Texas, like Dallas, kind of what you do. And then in Houston, they kind of have a style. And in San Antonio.
And in El Paso.
Exactly.
Where I came from.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned. I thought all Mexican food was Tex-Mex. I just thought it was in the U.S. Man, I moved to El Paso, and I thought, what on earth is happening here?
Yeah.
And then when I left El Paso, I'm like, oh, my gosh. I know what I'm doing now. I know the differences.
Yeah. And, I mean, those, even, the flour tortillas, that's become a big thing. Well, it's always been a big thing.
Sure.
Close to the border and everything. And that's just because, North Mexico uses the flour a lot more as opposed to your traditional corn, for the tortilla at least. And, that's something that influences, the dishes and influences the style of food.
You bet.
And even then, you go to certain areas in Houston, I noticed, like, they'll be like, oh, well, we use this for our fajita meat. We'll use, this for, our chicken.
Right.
And a lot of them, are like, oh, that's big. You don't tell people about that type of stuff.
You don't get that deep.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know too much about it, but there's like a big history on families in Houston.
Oh.
With the, Mexican restaurants per se, or Tex-Mex that are in that area. It's like 3 families or 4 families.
Oh, okay.
And they all kind of, do their thing. Like Ninfas is known for, like the fajitas and stuff like that.
I think they got one in Dallas. I think I've been there.
Yeah, and I mean, that's supposed to be where the fajitas was
invented.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And it's like, I mean, anytime we go to a place, we always judge it off fajitas, kind of. Like me and my brother.
Sure.
Even my dad, he'll always, first thing, beef fajitas. Let's see how it looks.
Okay. All right.
And, like, he'll always even say, he's like, we use good meat. And he, like, whenever he sees it's like little strips, or if it's a bunch of vegetables, like, bell pepper, onion, and tomato.
Right.
Or sitting in a pool of, like, liquid. He's like, no. He's like, and even then, like, in Houston, a lot of the places they use, charbroilers and charcoal and stuff like that. And so they give a distinct flavor also.
Oh, no question. Yeah.
And it's like here in Northwest Arkansas, like, I'm very biased when it comes to eating at Mexican restaurants.
Sure.
So, I don't, or Tex-Mex, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, I just eat at the restaurant because I'm like, every time I go somewhere, like, I feel like I'm missing this, or I feel like it needs this,
Yeah.
And that's just how it is for us. And
That's life.
Yeah.
That's life for you guys.
Mm-hmm. And I mean,
especially when you travel away from here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I mean, for the most part, it's, Tex-Mex, it's something I discovered I was older now.
Mm-hmm.
And I even got so much into it where I bought some cookbooks that were actually like from the 70s and 80s that are
nice,
about like Tex-Mex and the whole history and how it became like a part of things. And even then, like, our chili, that's a big thing. Like, the chili we make, it's very Texas kind of, but Mexican at the same time. And honestly, like, it's kind of controversial, but I feel like there should be no beans in the chili.
Okay.
And
that's very Texas.
Yeah, and it's like anytime I see beans in the chili, I'm like, oh man. I was like, I don't know. It's like,
you're more Texan than you think, bud.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And for the most part, like, whenever, like, even our tamales, like, we'll put the chili on top of them.
Okay, yeah.
And we'll have, like, older gentlemen from Texas that, there's a lot of people that are moving here.
Of course.
And so they'll be like, you know what? Those tamales, they'd go really good if they had some cornbread like this place in Texas they serve. And I was like, oh. So one day my dad had me making cornbread. For a customer every time he walked in.
Wow.
He'd eat it with his tamales and chili.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, you're kind of in a tough position because since taking over, especially here, you're a Brightwater grad. You went to Brightwater.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things on the menu here that are traditional. And there's some creativity that, you would hope to employ.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a fine line here. How does this work for you?
Well,
because if you end up putting something new on a menu, you're going to make some people mad by taking something off.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, yeah, you're definitely right. So, like, just like, I guess, a little background on, like, the school my dad came from.
Here we go.
He would really, like, the places he worked at growing up, it was always, like, big menus,
Sure.
Like 4-page. You go to La Hacienda, we have, like, a 3-page menu.
Okay.
And, it's something that it's always the same,
Mm-hmm.
Consistency is very big on, what we do.
Absolutely.
So, if you ordered enchiladas, in 2002 at La Hacienda and you go here in 2025, it's going to be the
exact
same thing.
It's important.
And, that's something that I don't mess with at all. Even even after I graduated from school and, picked up everything that I could from there,
Yeah.
it's like I'm just coming in and, refining things.
Sure.
Because like you said, it is a fine line. There's people that they get bothered and they'll get, like, hey, why do we have to do this? Or why are we doing this like that?
Okay.
And, that's growing up, like I said, I hated the business. I didn't want to be in it.
I know.
And, whenever I started, my mom would always say to me, because for some reason, I was always pulled, like, the kitchen always called my name. My brother, my twin, he would always work like front of house for some reason when we were growing up.
Yeah, same.
We were like 11, 10, 12, and he's the busboy working in front. And he would, I'd be kind of jealous, but I wasn't too jealous because I liked working in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I like saw the movement. I saw, just the, like, kind of the boys hanging out, type of deal.
That's it.
And I was like, that's pretty cool. And so I was always just really into that. And, I was good at it and I liked the kitchen. But working, I was like, I didn't like the business. And then finally, my mom would always tell me, you should go and become a chef. She's like, you should go to school to become a chef. And I was like, Mom, that's your dream. I was like, that's not my dream. But little did I know, I started.
What was your dream at that point? To play for the Houston Texans?
Oh, definitely. I was like, me and my brother were like, you know what? We're going to play at the U of A and then get drafted by the Texans.
Yeah,
and, I was like, I'll be a pro pretty soon. But I was like a 5'10" tackle, so.
Yeah, right. that Not a lot of call for that in the NFL.
Yeah, I should have learned how to kick instead.
Yeah, right. I hear you there. I deep snapped. I couldn't kick.
I should have learned that at least.
Yeah.
But, so, it's the kitchen. I went to culinary school because I got tired of the cook saying, oh, this is how you do it, or this is how you're supposed to do it.
Okay.
And
you needed confirmation. You wanted the real thing.
Yeah, and whenever I got to that point, I got this idea. I'm like, I'm going to go to culinary school so no one can tell me how to do stuff that, I was currently working with.
Sure.
I was like, where's the book? Let me see the book. You know?
Right. I need proof.
Mm-hmm. And so I got this idea, and finally I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I started learning that culinary school was a thing. I didn't know it was. I was going to NWAC at the time.
Okay.
I didn't even know Brightwater existed.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it was a school. I didn't know. I was like, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then I found out about CIA, the Culinary Institute of America.
There you go.
And I just was fascinated about this idea of like a Hogwarts almost for like chefs,
Kinda, yeah.
And I was like, that just looks awesome. And I found out they had one in Austin or in Dallas. I can't remember where.
Okay.
They have one in Texas. And I got to a point where I called them and I found out that like I was on that fine line where I couldn't get a scholarship, but at the same time, I didn't qualify for financial aid.
That's such crap.
So, everything was pretty much out of pocket.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't move to Texas or move to New York and pay for,
anything.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
Not even an apartment.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, but somehow I found out about Brightwater, I think through like Instagram or somewhere. Mm-hmm. And at that time,
so I'm assuming this is like the very early days of Brightwater.
It was like their website was very like, it had like a very like simple description of like farm to table.
Okay.
Just practice and
very early. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I'm with you.
It just had like a list of the type of classes they had. And whenever I got to Brightwater, I showed up, got the pants, got the coat, and got the hat, and I was like, this is so dumb. I was like, this is cheesy. And my mom's like, take a picture. And my girlfriend, my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time. She's like, hey, babe, you should send me a picture of your uniform. And
hey.
I remember I was like, gosh, I can't even believe I'm taking this.
Yeah.
And I showed up, man, and I fell in love with cooking.
Good for you, man.
I fell in love with the business.
That's when it clicked.
yeah, I was like, you know what, man? I was like, this is it. I was like,
Yeah.
this is what I want to do.
Right on.
And, you know, that point got to where, you know, I just got invested with food and cooking and learned about Anthony Bourdain and
Yeah, man.
learned about how kitchen crews are like pirates and, you know, there's good, you know.
The whole underworld,
Yeah.
if you will.
And, you know, even just learning about, you know, how there's addiction and, you know, there's this dark side to the whole,
No question.
you know, that. And I was just, you know, just so fascinated with that, you know, this is what I grew up doing, but I was like, you can take it into a different concept, or you
Sure.
can take it into a different, you know,
Sure.
way of going with things. And I was just,
So are you still able to be creative?
I think, yeah, I definitely do. Like every day, like I think some of the employees get annoyed because I'll be like R&D every day.
Good.
Like every day I'm,
Right on.
you know, trying something different or trying something new, or
Yeah.
like, you know, I got into smoking and into like barbecue and,
Yeah. You had a food truck, right?
well,
Or trailer?
we have a trailer, but
Okay.
that's for a different concept.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And so I learned about that. And then, you know, like I was making some jalapeno sausage here with Oaxaca cheese.
Ooh.
And, you know, we put it on a fajita skillet with some fajitas. And
Ooh.
it looked good.
How'd it taste?
Yeah, great. And I
Okay.
mean, it's like I said, the cooks were looking at me the whole time, just like pissed off. Like,
Yeah, right.
like what is it?
You gonna make us do this now?
Yeah, they're like, more work. You kidding me?
That's right. That's great.
So I have to, you know, I'm just kind of just keeping it in, you know, kind of just storing it, finding out what works, finding out what
Right.
doesn't work. And
Right.
like, you know, at Matt Cooper's, I'd always see them making gnocchi.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that looks so cool.
Mm-hmm.
One day I had decided, I was like, I'm going to make some gnocchi real quick. And so I made some here with some, you know, just some potatoes and
Sure.
flour. And the cook saw me making it. They're like kind of laughing. They're like, what is he doing over there? They're like, look at him roll those things. And then, you know, I made it almost like chilaquiles.
Okay. Yeah.
So, you know, instead of having your tortilla chip, I had the gnocchi, you know, and it had your cilantro, onion, cheese, the queso
Interesting.
fresco, the sour cream.
And did you brown the gnocchi a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
I'm big on like textures and like crispy
Yes.
and all that.
Yeah. Same.
And I was like, you have to make it like you say in Spanish, crujiente. It's crispy.
Okay.
It's like, so, you know, that's something I tried out and I was like, oh wow. I was like, this is actually pretty good. So I was like, I'm gonna save that for.
I'm about to say you don't want to be making gnocchi every day.
No. No, I would never set up my
Right.
my crew for that.
Oof.
It's like
It's tough.
as it is. Like I started getting into tortilla making, like from scratch.
Sure.
So like nixtamalization and just cooking the corn and just being a 3-ingredient tortilla.
Mm-hmm.
Like my dad, like now that I've gotten into it and now that I like the business,
Yeah.
I've become obsessed with certain things.
Sure.
And like I became obsessed with tortillas right now and making tortillas. And my dad brought me this molino, they call it. It's a grinder basically.
Oh yeah.
And it has 2 volcanic stones that are turning.
Okay.
And you just feed the corn to the cooked corn to the top, and then it makes your masa harina.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why we got that little station right there. I don't know if you've noticed it.
That's
That's out there.
Okay.
There's a little grill station that we're setting up for like a tortilla station.
I'll have to look. Oh, you have to show me after.
Yeah. It's something because I mean at La Hacienda they make the flour tortillas.
Okay.
So we feel like we've got it down for the most part.
Okay.
But like the corn tortilla, that's something that I've started to really explore. And
Sure. Well, they're getting popular again, especially white corn tortillas. Those are getting really popular.
Yeah, I was messing with more like an heirloom variety of corn.
Okay.
Like one cool thing about Mexico is there's like over like 60 varieties of corn.
I had no idea.
And I mean, the company that I had gotten it from, they support like indigenous, you know, families that basically dedicate to just growing this corn.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it's something that me and my mother have had a discussion, and like my siblings, about how at times the old is becoming new, but at the same time there's a lot of old techniques or old like dishes in Mexico that are starting to disappear.
Okay. Yeah.
And like even now, like whenever I had gone to Mexico recently, one of the whole things I was going for was to try to find someone to teach me to make the
old dishes.
Yeah, well, not only that, but make a tortilla, just a corn tortilla.
Gotcha.
And like a lot of the ladies thought it was funny that, you know, they see this Hispanic guy, Mexican guy coming up and be like, hey, can you teach me how to make tortillas?
With an Arkansas accent?
Yeah, seriously.
That's
and they just thought they're like, why? They're like, why do you want to learn how to make a tortilla? And, you know, it's something that maybe because machismo and all that is kind of frowned upon, but I was like, I don't care. I was like, I want to learn. And even then, I had a chef I'd gone to talk to in San Miguel that I wanted to kind of do like a stage with.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to.
That's an internship for those that don't know.
Yeah. I'm going to eventually try to get there and work for him for maybe some time. But whenever I told him about I wanted to learn how to make a tortilla, he thought it was such a joke. He's like, hey, he turned to my mom. He's like, do you want to slap him or should I slap him?
Yeah.
Because he's like, how do you not know? He's like, you're Mexican. He's like, you've got to be, you know, he's like, you got to know that.
You learn at birth, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, you're right. And so whenever I got here, I just learned by trial and error.
Okay.
I never had anyone show me, but as soon as I got here, I was like, all right.
Put on YouTube and
Yeah, that, cookbooks.
Sure.
Even then, I ended up having one of my cousin's wives from Mexico come up here, and I had her like watch me, just to kind of like give me the seal of approval, just like,
perfect.
Hey, she's like, you got it, because there's this thing like if your tortilla, when you're cooking it, if it rises up on the grill, like if it pillows up,
they're
like, you can get married now, and that's the thing. And like the joke was, they're like, oh, you can get married now, and I was like, oh, well, good thing I'm already married. So.
Yeah. Wow.
Like you don't have to worry about it.
I love the old world traditions.
Yeah,
that's great.
That's what the thing was for women. They're like, if you can make a tortilla, then that means you can get married.
Oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, well, I'm already married, so.
Yeah, no, I get it now. It now. So, bringing it back here, what's the difference between the menus between La Hacienda and San Miguel?
San Miguel got to be a little bit more of a, how can we make it easier compared to La Hacienda?
Okay.
So we kind of wanted to streamline it a little bit more, and we're like, we reduced the menu.
Okay.
Kept some of the dishes the same, just changed the names or, you know, the garnishes or the plating a little bit.
Okay.
But for the most part, it's still the same ingredients, same pretty much setup.
Yeah.
Like the combos, the combination dinners, we don't have as many here versus La Hacienda.
Yeah.
And we felt like it was just easier for the kitchen staff and the waiters just to be able to learn in general. And I mean, even after that, like I'd say the biggest difference would be here at San Miguel, we have a breakfast that we serve Thursday through Sunday, starting at 8 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all because my father brought in my uncle from Houston.
Okay.
He worked in hotel kitchens he was a hotel chef for, I want to say like over 30 years over there in Houston. And he was the breakfast chef there.
Okay.
And so when he came up here, we're like, we're going to serve breakfast here. So, you know, 2014, he made it up here, and he's been with us since, and he's the guy that does the breakfast. And
that's great.
And I mean, for the most part, like, we've taken it as far as like for the chorizo, we had one of my mom's, basically someone they know who's a butcher in Toluca, Mexico.
Yeah.
That's kind of like considered like the mecca for chorizo.
Oh, okay.
Because they make like green one, red one, and like different flavors. And they happened to be here in the U.S. at one point, and they taught my uncle how to make the chorizo.
Oh, wow.
How they make it in Mexico. So we grind it all here, and we make it here and season and everything. So
nice.
We're not buying chorizo that, you know, from someone else. And it's
very cool.
It's very 100%. That's 100% Mexican recipe.
Right, man. Right. Speaking of which, a couple of menu items. We'll start off with San Miguel. Mm-hmm. Jose's Special, named after your dad, I'm assuming.
Yeah, definitely. So the Jose Special, we had a guy that was a friend of my dad's that it was basically his busboy when my dad was a server back in the day.
Oh, wow.
That guy's always worked in restaurants, and he came up here, and he was a manager at the time, and he's like, I'm gonna make y'all some new dishes. And we're like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, look at this one. And told my dad, and it was the Jose special, and it's fajitas, chicken and beef, a little bit of a smoked jalapeno sausage, and then 2 jumbo shrimp that are wrapped in bacon with a little bit of jalapeno and cheese in the middle.
Good night.
And yeah, rice, beans, and flour tortillas. And,
Night.
Yeah, it's definitely a good filling dish that you could definitely split between 2.
The family.
Yeah. And he saw that, and we're like, hey, let's do it. And it's been on the menu since. We haven't taken it off.
That's awesome. Got to talk about the stuffed avocados.
Yeah, so funny story, man. The stuffed avocados, same guy. There's rumors about one of my older brothers being in the room, my dad.
Are we talking lore here? This is lore? Legend?
That's what they say.
Okay.
And I think another gentleman. And they said that they happened to, get the avocado. They stuffed it, did the process you need to do. It was breaded, fried, and they're like, that's what became the fried avocado. And that was at the time, it was, let me see. I'm sure I could find an old menu, but easily before 2009 or 2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it was something that we always kept off the menu.
Interesting.
Like, especially at La Hacienda.
Yeah.
Because, like some of the guys that would work for us, they'd go and that'd be like their selling point to be like, hey, I'm your guy. I know how to make this stuffed avocados. And we're like, next thing you know, it was popping up all around the city. And we're like, whoa, stuffed avocados too.
Hang on.
Yeah, and I want to say even like Chewy serves it now.
Oh, huh.
My sister, she sent me a post one day. She's like, can you believe they're serving stuffed avocados? And we start here in Fayetteville. I was like, that's wild. I was like, that's something to put, just put on my cap.
There you go. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So that's that's something.
It's still very popular.
Yeah, it's definitely a filling dish. Like if you're hungry, that's when they'll put you to sleep for sure. It's very rich.
Well, yeah, for sure, for sure. Tell me about the shrimp Mazatlan.
So those, like us, anytime we've talked to vendors, for a long time, my dad had this vendor from Ben and Keith that, like, best friends. Mm-hmm. And he's retired now, but anytime a vendor would come up to us, he'd always be like, can you get this shrimp? And if they couldn't get that shrimp, they weren't getting our business.
Right.
And with that dish, it's these beautiful jumbo Gulf butterflied shrimp that, we saute in a pan, a little bit of butter, and they used to add garlic, but they don't anymore.
Okay.
And, they'll cook the shrimp down. And one thing that I've added is just adding a little bit of wine, just from my culinary background.
Sure.
So now they all add wine to it because they saw me do it one time. So all the cooks now, they add wine to it.
Nice.
And that's just before we add the finishing sauce. And, that's like a red tomato-based sauce. It's like your traditional, like almost like Mexican red enchilada sauce.
Okay, sure.
But we use it with the shrimp, and it helps give it a good just flavor. And we put it with a bed of rice, and so like traditionally, you're supposed to let the rice and the sauce kind of mix.
Okay, yeah.
And you eat it together like that, and it comes with your good old charro beans, which
sure.
are your soup beans.
Yeah, man.
And it's a very it'll warm your soul type of.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. La Hacienda now, the Mexican flag enchiladas. Got to start there.
Yeah, so that same guy I was talking about, he happened to make those enchiladas.
Okay, all right.
He helped us with that.
Nice.
And it was like one of those things, he's like, look, Jose, look what I can do.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's still stuck with us too. And it's...
For those that don't know, explain exactly what you're talking about.
So we have a chicken enchilada with green sauce. We have a cheese enchilada with the white sauce. And then we have a beef enchilada with red sauce. And that's, for the most part, the Mexican flag and
Absolutely.
shells.
Right.
Giving it that color, that tricolor.
Sure.
The Mexican colors.
Tricololes.
Yes, sir. And that's something that's really popular just because, some people, they want, like, I want a beef, a chicken, a cheese. And then some people are like, I want, those sauces.
Yeah.
And, it all just marries together very well. Like, the red sauce with the green sauce and the white sauce, it all, sometimes there's certain sauces that you mix them and they don't meld together. They don't go together. But those, you can definitely get a chip and a fork and go to work with it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's definitely a good one.
Tacos de alambre.
So that one, like, I remember when we would go to places like in Texas, we're a family where we always take like mental notes and be like, hey, you remember where they did that place, where they did this certain dish?
Right.
Like, let's try that out.
Yeah.
And so that was just something that, we were, I can't remember where in Texas, but basically we came back and we're like, hey, let's get the street tacos with the asada meat, the beef, but let's add a little bit of bell pepper and onion, cook it.
Yeah.
And then just cook it with a little bit of Chihuahua white cheese. And it was a hit since the day that we put it. Like,
I'm sure.
Yeah, we put it on the whiteboard. And I think it didn't come off the whiteboard after that until we put it on the menu.
Yeah.
And it's just something that, to this day, like, there's other variations, but, like some people add ham to it. But ours is just the fajita beef or fajita chicken, bell pepper and onion, and just cook down good, and then just a little bit of cheese and let that all cook on the grill.
Yeah. Throw
it in a tortilla.
Yeah. And you have the egg dishes at both places.
Yeah.
And those are served around the clock, right?
Yeah. That's like a thing with Tex-Mex restaurants. You always go in and they'll always have like 2 to 3 egg dishes. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I think back in the day, they're like, hey, we can make good money on eggs, I think. And like, and now it's yeah, it's like, don't order.
Good chance we can break even, maybe.
Yeah, don't order the eggs.
Right. X.
Yeah, it's not the large grade anymore.
Yeah, right. That's right.
And for the most part, we have the omelet, which is like a Mexican omelet, just cheese omelet topped with a red tomato-based sauce. Mm-hmm. We call it Española sauce.
Yep.
And has just a cheese chalupa, a little bit of lettuce, beans, tomato, and cheese, and diced tomato, and that's it.
Okay.
And then the same thing with the huevos rancheros. It's just 2 over-easy eggs, topped with the same sauce, that tomato red-based sauce, Española, and then just the chalupa also right there on the side. And that's, for the most part, those 2 are the popular ones. And then huevos con chorizo, I'd say it goes a pretty good amount also.
Yeah.
Ever since we switched up the chorizo, that's become one of the star dishes out of the egg ones, I guess.
Nice. Well, and you mentioned a little bit earlier the breakfast / brunch.
Yeah.
That you guys have. Well, I guess at both places. It's also for, was it Sunday at La Hacienda?
Yeah, so at La Hacienda, it's a lot simpler, not as much options.
Okay.
It's a smaller menu. It's just Sunday, and it cut, like, 11 o'clock it's
the cutoff time.
Yeah, you can't even order a fried egg after that, I think. My staff is like, I got to get my other stuff ready.
So what is next for you guys?
So I was talking about how, you were discussing how you drive on Zion every day. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've noticed a red food truck out there in front of those apartments right behind La Hacienda.
Yeah. Yes. Are you talking about like on the grass by those houses on the left?
Yeah.
Yes, I have seen that trailer.
So that one we bought about over like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Might be close to 3.
Okay.
But that's one of those things, like, my dad and us will be like, hey, we should get that.
Okay. Yeah, I have seen that, actually.
So we bought that like 3 years ago.
Okay.
I put the barbecue kind of on hold.
Okay.
Because it's kind of like my little baby, like my passion project.
Sure.
Like, I'm not in a rush to do. But out of there, we're going to sell burgers.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's going to be like simple burgers,
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be like your regular kind of American burger, but it's going to have a little bit of Mexican influence.
Nice.
So in Mexico City, it's starting to become like really popular, certain burgers. but they use, Mexican ingredients like Oaxaca cheese.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
They'll put the pickled jalapenos on there.
Okay.
They'll get the hot dog and cut it in half and put it on top of there.
Interesting.
And I mean, they'll grill a pineapple and they'll put it on a burger.
Okay.
And, people might think it's like controversy with the pineapple and pizza. It's like, I don't know what they think about pineapple in a burger, but it goes good. That's all I can say.
Okay.
And
well, sweet and salty kind of, right?
Yeah. So that's something that we're setting up to do a little just kind of food truck for maybe, the surrounding community in that area. Okay. And I mean, it's all kind of within our area,
Sure.
Like San Miguel's here, La Hacienda's there.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have that there. And for the most part, it's going to be simple. It's not going to be something where you can come in and choose 8 different sauces.
Right.
And,
yeah.
Like 10 different toppings and stuff like that.
Sure.
It's going to be pretty set in stone for the most part on what you can order and what they'll have available.
Okay.
And it's something that I actually, before I came here, we just got done with the health department and getting approved for it. So
nice.
We did a little test run this weekend and making sure everything's working fine.
No kidding.
And working good, how it's supposed to.
And where is it set up right now? Is it in that spot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were going to develop that area right there.
Yeah.
And then just came into some issues with the city and stuff like that. So we're like, well, for now, let's sell burgers out of that spot for right now.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, we're going to have that. And then we have another food truck that we have a couple more plans for, but that'll be something that will tag along with the burgers.
So, and is that the one that's parked out there outside of, or maybe it's not there anymore? It was there for a while, I think, right?
Yeah, that one, that red one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we had gotten it from a guy that was selling barbecue down the road.
Oh, okay.
And we happened to know some people he knew, and I walked up there and I was like, "Hey, man, do you want to sell this?" And I think he was ready to
do it, ready to pull the trigger.
Yeah, he was ready to get out of the business. Nice. I think so.
Yeah,
it was a good thing for everyone, I think.
Well, man, I appreciate it.
No, man, thank you.
This is great. How can folks find you?
So I mean, for the most part, just Instagram, JRod5655.
Okay.
That's the only really social media I kind of use for food stuff, honestly. And we can still La Hacienda, NWA, and just make sure it's Fayetteville. There's a lot of people that they'll look it up and it'll be like
Houston.
Yeah, not in Northwest Arkansas.
Right.
And San Miguel Mexican Grill and Bar. For the most part, I tell people the website is sanmiguel.com. Right now they've had a couple issues, so that might change to NWA San Miguel.
Okay.
But if anything, you can just look us up on Google, and
there you go.
We have our hours available there and phone number and everything.
Okay. Flavors of Northwest Arkansas on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, even. Sure, appreciate your time, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
appreciate
you got
this.
it. You guys have a great week. Tip your servers, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.